In this video, I go from Thessaloniki, the second biggest city in Greece, to the central Pindos Mountains to see what roads this Greek mountain range has to offer. Does the Tzoumerka National Park make a good base for mountain and mountain pass road trips? But before we get into the ins and outs, let's cover the basics. First of all, where is Tzoumerka? It's on the west side of the mainland of Greece, about 3.5 hours from Thessaloniki and about 4.5 hours from Athens. The area is extremely isolated. If you're not staying in a hotel, take food with you and whatever you need. There is a good chance the supermarket with the things that you usually buy will be back in Ioannina or Arta, about 40 minutes away. When is the best time to go? With regards to the weather, we went in August, and even though we were staying at 800 meters, it was still 36 Celsius during the day. Night temps dropped to around 24 Celsius. Traffic, again, all this is when we went there in August, and the traffic was super quiet. It was very few tourists on the east and the west side of the Tzoumerka mountain range. But the north and the south ends has some tourists, but nothing major. I imagine in the spring and the autumn is when it gets super busy. Plus rockfalls are a real problem, even in August. And I think going when it's rainy, that's going to be even more of an issue. In short, I think the summer was the perfect time for what we wanted to do there. The roads were quiet, but at the same time the mountain roads were still accessible. So the meat and potatoes, the standout roads in Tzoumerka, in the central Pindos Mountains. I've got to do a quick shout out to Dangerous Roads because they put me onto this in the first place by highlighting the Baros Pass. So the Baros Pass, it's probably the most famous pass in the Tzoumerka National Park, and it's also one of the highest mountain passes in Greece at 1,903 meters. It links the east side of the mountain range to the west side. It was a dirt road only accessible by 4x4 until 2014. In regards to the technicals of the Baros Pass, there are 3 roads which meet at the summit of the pass. One goes from Haliki village, which is on the east side, and then there's another 2 roads coming up from the west side. One comes up from a village called Kalarites, and the other one from Matsouki. So Route A, I'm going to call it, which goes up from Kalarites. This road looks by far the most touristy of all of them. Because there's 2 main sort of tourist sites on the way up. One is a famous monastery which is built into the side of a mountain, and the other is a waterfall which has got a walk going up to another village which I don't remember at the moment. Basically it's across the valley from it, and even though it was quiet when we went, these places, the car parkings that they have, there was easily 10-20 cars parked in these places. So what it's like in spring and autumn, I've no idea. I imagine it's pretty packed there, and that would be a bit of a nightmare for me because the road is, like I said, super narrow, steep. It's got big drop-offs, not the greatest surface. Maybe the people in the area that are driving aren't used to the area either, not used to driving on these type of roads. So summer I think was the best time. I wouldn't want it to be any busier than it was when we went. Got that tight bit, steep bit on the way up, and then after the village you get up out of the trees and then you're into sort of an alpine environment without the trees. It's an asphalt road for most of the part until the top. There are a couple of narrow sections and sections which turn to dirt with overhanging rocks, but generally it's asphalt to the top. It's definitely an interesting drive that's got excellent views. The other way to get up from the west side is going through Matsouki village. The road up from Matsouki seems to be less touristy than Kalarites and a bit less hair-raising, but nevertheless there is, a road next on a cliff face, big drops on the one side. The road up through the village there at Matsouki I found super dodgy. It's very steep, very narrow, and blind corners. Luckily we only saw sort of 1 car on the way up, and luckily that was in a passing place. And then once you get past the village of Matsouki, it's a similar type of environment. Well, it's exactly the same environment as it was up from Kalarites. You get out of the trees, but you don't have the overhanging rocks and such big drops as you do on the Kalarites way up. I'd say the road is definitely a bit worse on the way up with regards to tarmac and dirt sections, but perhaps the scenery is even more spectacular than the Kalarites road. At the top of the pass you can do a loop then. You can either come back down on the Kalarites and vice versa if you just want to stick to the west side of the mountain range. If you want to go over to the east side of the mountain range, you go down to the and Thusa Khaliki road. Say the road down the other side is more of a traditional alpine pass, switchbacks, pine trees, steeper drops. There's occasional pieces where the asphalt's been walked away, been washed away. But when we went there, it was definitely drivable with a car. If you do decide to go down the other side, you'll have to come back up the same way. There's only one road down and one road back up. You could do a big loop, go down and take the Scafida Pass, I think it's called, which goes up to Metsovo. But honestly, I'd probably give that a miss. It's supposed to be quite high, but the scenery is not great from there. Definitely nothing what you'd get in Tzoumerka. Or you can go right when you get down the other end, and you could do a lap of the entire Tzoumerka mountain range, which is what we did on one day. So the lap of Tzoumerka, it is possible to drive around Tzoumerka with a car, at least when we went. I'm not sure what it's like in the winter. It's asphalt most of the way, except for the part between Alexu Bridge and a village called Amatoliko. This is quite a long stretch of gravel road here, washboard kind of surface. I mean, it's not bumpy, it looks graded, if you know what I mean. It's not perfect, but you can sort of maintain sort of 30 kilometers an hour along it. When we did it, when we went down, we probably made a mistake by following the signs to Paliahori. So we'd been going down this dirt road for quite a while, and then there was a sign right that was onto an asphalt road that went straight up the side of the mountain to Paliahori. And I think it was a mistake to go up there, because we went up this asphalt road, we did all the switchbacks, we got up onto the side of the mountain, and then the road turned to really bad dirt road, like bumpy. And on that, we were lucky if we were averaging 10 kilometers an hour. The road was very bad, very narrow, and it went on for a really long time. I think the best way would have been to continue on that road that followed down by the river. Like, we didn't do it ourselves, but I imagine that would have been the better choice. Like, both roads eventually they join up just outside Amatoliko, and then after Amatoliko you come to the Mesochora Dam. It's a huge dam, it's massive. I think it's supposed to be 100 meters high, and it definitely looks that from the top. It is a really high dam, but it's never been filled because there's some sort of legal issue with the whole construction of that. They want to divert the water from the west side of Greece and divert it to the east side, and there's concerns about earthquakes if they fill it. Anyway, it's a big legal battle. I'll put a link there, you can read about it there. Once we went past the dam, we went down to the main road from Arta to Trikala to get back up to Kataraktis to go around the bottom of the mountain range. But we did take a little detour before we got down there, and we took a ride up the mountains to try and get up the Theodoriana Pass and the village there. But that didn't go as planned, and I'll go into that in a bit detail below. With regards to the lap of Tzoumerka, will we do it again? I think yes, it was definitely an experience. When we were driving that road coming down, there looked like there'd been a huge flood there at some point. I mean, there was huge trees washed into the river, massive boulders all over the place. And also, I'd say the weather on the east side of that mountain range is a bit wetter, it seemed, than on the west side. So all in all, I'd say it's definitely worth doing that lap. And then we come on to the Theodoriana Pass, which is the other paved mountain pass that goes over Tzoumerka, and it goes between the village called Athamagno on the Trikala Arta Road and that village of Theodoriana. We went up on this pass from Athamagno, up from the south end of that mountain pass. When you're going up through the village, it's steep, it's paved, it's got switchbacks, but after you leave any sign of the houses, the road turned into a mixture of medium gravel, which was just about passable with a car, and broken tarmac sections. It was a really worn out road, really badly worn out road. Views not as amazing as we thought they would be, but they were still really spectacular. You could see south down into the southern Pindos Mountains. It was a really good views from up there. Once you get to the top of the pass, you follow the road down into Theodoriana, which you can see when you're at the top of the pass. The other side of the mountain, the road surface was much better, much better. There were sections that were a bit washed out, but you know, you could pass them with the car, no worries. Passing through the village there was okay. Again, it was narrow, steep streets which were blind, but we were going downhill, so it's always a bit easier if you're doing that. And then we went on the road out of Theodoriana, which is going back down to the road where we tried to come up the day previously. And this is where the excitement is, or was. because about a quarter of the way down that road there'd been a massive landslide, like the part of the mountain had come away and blocked the road. And instead of getting rid of that gravel because there's simply too much of it, they've just got a bulldozer and just gone over the top of the landslide and made the road on top of it. So you're looking at a gravel surface. It's got no barriers. It's got signs saying use this road at your own risks. There's signs at either end of that access road to the village saying that the road is closed. So all the signs are there saying it's dodgy. And then you come onto this gravel thing, like I said, with no barriers, massive drop down to the side. It looks kind of okay from the top, but when we drove it the previous day, it was raining. And when I looked up and saw where they'd built this road over the top of this landslide, it looked super dodgy. So we turned around immediately the previous day, but coming down from the top looked all right. And then once you pass the landslide, you go along a cliff face. You're going along a gorge there, and I think that probably about a kilometre maybe. So, road cut into the side of the mountain, massive drops on the one side, rocks in the road. If you've seen anything from Colombia or maybe the Himalayas, kind of like that, maybe on a smaller scale, but still it was very impressive, very interesting, very exciting to do. So those are the key ones, the Baros Pass and the Theodoriana Pass. There's some other roads worth checking there. There's a road that goes up to Kataraktis Waterfalls. There's actually a village there called Kataraktis, and they've got waterfalls above the village. And that road is very narrow, single switchback lane, badly asphalted, maybe concrete. When you get up to the waterfalls, it's, great views as well. When we went there, the waterfalls were dry in August, so I expect you've got to go there in sort of winter, spring if you want to see them running. They looked absolutely massive. I think they're supposed to be 80 metres or maybe 100 metres high. Imagine when there's a lot of water coming out of them, they are super spectacular. Other roads, there's the road from Ioannina. So we went direct from Thessaloniki to Kataraktis. We went on more or less the most direct way according to Google Maps. And then this took us on a road where we come down from Ioannina and then you drop down into the valley. So it's kind of normal road. And then you come over the edge of the valley, and then you can see the valley dropping down in front of you, and then the road goes down the side of this cliff then into the valley. That was absolutely massive drops there, cut into the side of the cliff again. Road surface not too bad, they are rebuilding it. Quite a bit of traffic on that road, but that was a great introduction. It was a 2-lane road, but good introduction to the views. The scenery there was immense. The drops were super spectacular. There's another mountain over the valley which is quite narrow. That also had a massive vertical cliff on it. Super amazing little stretch of road that was. So the next thing I've got here is the west side of the valley. So not the Tzoumerka mountain range itself, but if you go west from there, there's another mountain range which is a bit smaller. And there's a road that goes up the edge of that. That road is okay, not the greatest surface. Definitely more cars on that road. Good views, but I would say, the best stuff is on the east side of that valley. So what's the verdict of the area? Is it a good base for road trips in Greece? If you're looking for roads where you can test the cornering limits of the car, it's definitely not the place. The road surfaces are too bumpy, there are too many rocks and stones falling into the road, and the roads are generally too narrow. But having said all that, the roads are entertaining, but in a different way. I did get a big thrill from driving there, and I definitely recommend it to anyone that likes driving on or off-road. But again, if you're looking for something that you see in Swiss mountain passes or Austria or whatever it may be, with the smooth roads, fast corners, this is, in my opinion, not the place for that. What car to take there? I would say your average hire car with decent ground clearance and suspension travel would be fine, would be perfect for the whole job. You could get up to that mountain pass, and I don't think there's a lot that would stop you then. I think a Fiat Panda rental car or a Nissan Qashqai would be absolutely ideal. Things to note, if you're thinking about going there, I've mentioned about the rocks and stones falling into the road. This looks like a constant year-round problem, judging by the amount of diggers and earth-moving equipment that you see scattered around the roads there. I've mentioned the tightness of the road, which might be a bit of a nightmare at busy tourist times if you've got a lot of traffic coming the other way. I can see how that could get a bit tricky, especially on steep sections of road. But one thing I haven't covered is the road surfaces, or should I say how they change. Not that they are bad, but they can alternate between asphalt and gravel. Specifically, what I mean is that they can lure you into a false sense of security. And a prime example of that is when I said we went to Mesochora. We had the signpost off a dirt road that was asphalt. So, logically speaking, we thought, okay, if it's asphalt in the middle of nowhere, the asphalt is going to go all the way to where we're going. But no, it took us up the mountain, that asphalt road, and then turned to bad single-track gravel road. But there were quite a few roads like that. You'd be going along, decent asphalt, and all of a sudden the asphalt stops, you're onto bad gravel roads, and that gravel road then will continue for, could continue for many kilometers until you hit asphalt again. Not sure what the answer to that is. Maybe have a better look at Google Maps, the satellite views when you're planning out your road trips. Have a look and see what the road is. Knowing now that this is a big thing there with the roads being asphalt and then stopping halfway into dirt, I'll probably take a closer look at the old satellite views before I'm planning the trips there. But all in all, it's all part of the adventure of going on holiday in that area, I think, of doing road trips in that area. And one last thing, the weather.
Χαίρετε.
Ανοιχτός είναι ο δρόμος.
Ναι, ανοιχτό είναι.
Α, γιατί έχει πινακίδα εκεί που λέει.
Έχει να γίνει κατάπτωση παλιά αυτοκίνητα.
Α, οκ, εντάξει, ευχαριστούμε πολύ.
It's Greece, so the weather is amazing most of the time. But if it is going to rain, I think it's important to understand how that is going to affect the road that you're on. I've said that the roads can turn from asphalt to dirt and then continue for kilometers. If it's raining or heavy rain there and you're on a gravel road, just bear in mind what that road could turn to if it gets really wet. It's all in all a great place, great scenery, and I think it's a great base for a road trip holiday. That's the video, guys. Hope you found it entertaining. As always, if you liked it, vote on it, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you again in the next video.